I turned into our driveway to the scream of a chainsaw, the reek of gas stinging my throat, and Linda Crowley standing on my lawn like she owned the deed. "Step back," she barked, visor tipped, boots grinding bark as the chain chewed a wedge into the old oak my father planted. Lydia gripped the porch rail with one hand and her belly with the other. When I stepped into the ring of roots, the chain rattled to a hungry idle. I didn't raise my voice. "You don't have authority to cut a living tree on private property without consent," she smirked. I pointed at the motionless sky. No storm, no wind, no falling limbs. Just a canopy keeping our porch from turning into an oven. The soil cooled my soles and my breathing steadied. "You misread your bylaws," I said, "and you're trespassing with a running saw." For a breath, power shifted. Here's the turn most people don't expect. I wasn't just another anxious homeowner praying for mercy. "Kill the engine," I said, steady as a monitor tone. "I direct the trauma center that'll treat whoever you hurt today." Her jaw ticked. The worker beside her, young, sweating, looked from the bar to Lydia and then to me. The chain slowed, chattering. A tiny pause, but it cracked the door I needed. If you've ever felt that surge when you square up to a bully, hit subscribe now. This showdown was about to become a masterclass in fighting back. "My name's Ethan Calloway," I told her. "I run emergency and surgery at St. Augustine. I've logged more preventable injuries than you've written violation letters. That shade is medical necessity, not decor. My wife has a heat-sensitive complication at 31 weeks. This canopy keeps our porch under 90 when the street hits 105. You cut it, you raise her risk. That's physiology." The worker's shoulders dropped a fraction. Lydia's knuckles shone white on the rail. "Uniformity," Linda said. "Sightlines." I moved closer, boots whispering through wet sawdust. Sap welled at the notch like a slow tear. "Sightlines didn't keep her upright last August," I said. "This tree did." Heat pressed my neck, exhaust salted my tongue, and the street went stage quiet. Maple Ridge's facades looked vacuumed, but the oak still smelled like rain, and that steadied me. Linda set her feet for another cut. I stepped between the bar and the trunk, palms open, chest humming with adrenaline that tasted like copper. "Back off my property," I said. "You've already caused damage." She huffed, waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. Lydia whispered my name. I pictured a kickback and a bright spray I'd wiped from too many trauma bays. I pictured our daughter's first breath. "Final warning," Linda said. The worker took half a step back. "You think titles scare me?" she asked. "Titles don't. Facts do." I raised my phone and started recording. Her on my lawn, the fresh cut, the HOA logo, the still flags, the dry forecast. I spoke the date and time. I noted her refusal to present written authority. The chain's rattle climbed, hungry for something soft to bite. Here's what mattered. I wouldn't match her volume. I would match her procedure. I would log, verify, corroborate. I would speak the language insurance adjusters and city investigators believe when bruised bodies can't. The best revenge wasn't noise. It was precision. Fear hardened into purpose, and my hands steadied. "Where are you watching from?" I asked you. The person who knows the second a rulebook turns into a weapon. If you've stood on a lawn like this, you know when a line gets cut into the earth. I felt it slice clean. Linda didn't realize she'd chosen the wrong yard to make an example of, the wrong family to push, the wrong director to corner with a machine I knew too well from the aftermath. I kept the lens on her, a mirror she couldn't dodge. "This ends with accountability," I said, low enough that only the leaves in my recording caught it. I planted my feet in the ring my father taught me to tend. I wasn't going to shout. I'd document and let procedure cut it clean. By the next morning, Maple Ridge looked untouched. No sawdust, no confrontation, just perfect symmetry pretending nothing ever happened. But word travels faster than cleanup crews here. Parents whispered at the playground, their voices low, but their eyes flicking toward me as I walked the mulch path. Lydia stayed home, resting, her leg propped, her nerves still rattled. The oak bore a fresh scar across its bark, a gash too neat to ignore. I came to the common green because I needed to see how deep Linda's reach went, and how many others she'd already silenced. Two mothers paused by the swings when they saw me. One adjusted her stroller canopy, whispering, "He's the doctor," the one who stood up to Linda. The other frowned, scanning the manicured lawns like the shrubs might have ears. Their quiet told me more than words. Everyone here lived with an unspoken rule: stay compliant or get crushed. Linda arrived 10 minutes later with her clipboard, her shield of authority. She pretended not to see me, heading straight for the notice board near the gazebo. A new violation sheet flapped there, pinned in bright red. Unauthorized lawn ornament, lot 112. The name beneath was Jacob and Elise Porter, a retired couple whose mailbox had a small bird carving their granddaughter made. The fine, $250 per week until removal. I'd treated Jacob once years ago, after a fall. He'd been cheerful then. Now he looked like someone defusing a bomb as he gently peeled the paper down. I waited until Linda stepped away, then joined him. "She still at it?" I asked. Jacob gave a hollow laugh. "She fined Elise for planting daisies that didn't match the color palette. Said they violated visual cohesion. We've been paying penalties for a month." He lowered his voice. "You stood up to her. Good for you. Most of us can't." "Why not?" I said. He nodded toward the houses. "Fear, retaliation. She gets personal, raises dues, reports people for invisible trash violations. Last year she had a neighbor's dog declared a hazard to get it removed." A gust moved through the green, carrying the scent of mulch and the sharp memory of gasoline from yesterday. I looked at the kids on the jungle gym, at their parents pretending to be busy on their phones. This wasn't a neighborhood. It was a system running on intimidation. Linda's voice rose from the gazebo. "Everyone remember the meeting tonight. Attendance is mandatory if you care about property values." Her tone made mandatory sound like a threat. I caught the edge of her smile when she glanced at me, controlled, confident. She still thought yesterday's scene was just another flex she could bury under paperwork. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through last night's recording. The video was crisp, the audio clean, her shouting orders, the saw whining, Lydia's plea in the background. I'd already backed it up to 3 drives and the hospital's private cloud. Old habit. We log every trauma incident in triplicate. Evidence disappears only if you let it. Across the green, Marcus Bell unloaded hedge trimmers from the HOA truck. His movements were mechanical, eyes down. When he glanced up, our gazes met for a split second. Something flickered there. Guilt, recognition, maybe both. He turned away fast. I'd seen that look before in interns after a bad call, the kind that keeps them up at night, replaying every decision. I walked past the sandbox, pretending to check messages, but really noting patterns. Who avoided Linda, who smiled too quickly, who lingered near Marcus as he worked. If this neighborhood was going to break its silence, I needed to understand its pressure points. This wasn't just about my tree, it was about an entire community anesthetized by fines and fear. A small boy tugged at my sleeve. "Mister, are you the doctor who yelled at the lady with the machine?" His mother hurried over, apologizing. "He heard about the noise yesterday. We're sorry if—" "It's fine," I said, crouching. "But she shouldn't have been using that machine near anyone, especially kids." The mother's eyes softened with something that looked like quiet agreement. "She cut down our neighbor's fence last month," she whispered. "Said it was 3 inches too tall. The police wouldn't even take a report." That confirmed what I already suspected. Linda's pattern wasn't a string of isolated overreaches. It was systemic abuse wrapped in procedural language. I'd seen it in malpractice reviews, authority misused under the pretense of order. You didn't beat that with outrage, you beat it with expertise. I texted myself a reminder. Obtain HOA charter, verify safety jurisdiction. My angle would be precision, not protest. If she'd bypassed municipal tree ordinances or insurance liability coverage, there'd be no bylaw deep enough to shield her. Back at the oak, the cut's edges had started to darken, the sap congealing like a wound starting to scar. Lydia watched from the porch as I set my hand against the bark. "You're not letting this go, are you?" she asked. "Not this time," I said. "Not when she thinks she can rewrite laws with a clipboard." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The playground chatter had already shifted. For the first time, whispers weren't about fear. They were about resistance. Marcus Bell avoided my gaze for a week. Every time the HOA truck idled near our cul-de-sac, I saw him behind the wheel, trimming hedges or measuring fences like his life depended on it. The morning after the playground meeting, I found him hunched by the retention pond, mower still running, shoulders tight as piano wire. I could tell he didn't want to talk, but his silence was the kind that rattled against conscience. I walked down the gravel bank, boots crunching. The sun hung low, painting the water with a hard gold sheen. "You were there," I said. "You saw what she did." He flinched at my voice, eyes flicking to the houses above us. "Keep your voice down," he murmured. His hands never stopped moving, tightening bolts on the mower that didn't need tightening. "Linda's got cameras by the clubhouse. She monitors audio sometimes." "Even here?" I asked. He gave a dry laugh. "Especially here." Then he wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his glove. Beneath the grime, he looked younger than I remembered, maybe early 30s, but already worn thin from too much compliance. I stayed a few steps away, giving him room. "My wife's leg could have been gone. You know that." He stopped twisting the wrench. His throat moved once before words came out. "She told me it was approved, said she filed an emergency removal with the city. I checked the forms later. Nothing was logged. I wanted to walk off the job, but I've got 2 kids, Doc. She said she'd blacklist me with every HOA in the district if I talked." His voice cracked at the end, barely a tremor, but enough to show the fracture lines. "Marcus," I said, "if you're afraid, I understand. But staying quiet won't keep you safe. It just keeps her untouchable." He leaned on the mower, staring at the pond. The reflection of the clubhouse shimmered in the ripples. Perfect, symmetrical, fake. "You think I don't know that?" he said quietly. "Last month she made me dig up a veteran's flagpole, said it violated height code. Guy tried to file a complaint. Next week his dues doubled. His trash pickup got delayed for 6 weeks. Coincidence?" His laugh had no humor in it. I felt that familiar mix of anger and clinical focus rise in me, the same clarity I used in the trauma bay when chaos hit. "She's weaponizing procedure," I said, "and she's leaving evidence every time she abuses it." He looked up at me then, eyes glassy but defiant. "Evidence doesn't matter when she's got the board under her thumb. They owe her favors. She got one of their sons a landscaping contract, another's daughter an HOA scholarship. Nobody crosses her." "Until now," I said. He hesitated, scanning the horizon. Kids laughed in the distance near the tennis courts, the sound too clean for the heaviness between us. "You planning to sue her?" "Not yet," I said. "Lawsuits take months. I'm thinking something faster and cleaner." His brow furrowed. "Cleaner? I deal in cause and effect, Marcus. One cut, one artery. My job is tracing the origin of damage. I just need to prove the chain of responsibility. Once I have that, she's done." He swallowed hard. "You sound sure." "I am," I said, "because I don't miss." For the first time, his shoulders loosened a little. He exhaled like someone lowering a heavy instrument. The mower idled between us, steady as a heartbeat. "If I give you what I know," he said, "she'll know it came from me. Then I'll make sure she never sees it coming," I told him, "and your name never crosses a file." He nodded slowly, but his hands trembled. I could see it, the battle between fear and decency tearing him apart. When he finally spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "She told the contractor to cut to the bone if you have to. I thought she was exaggerating. I didn't know your wife was outside until I heard her scream." My chest tightened, that image replaying in the rawest part of my mind. I didn't speak. The silence between us did more than any accusation. He took off his cap, dragging a hand through his hair. "If you're serious about taking her down, I'll think about helping. But I need proof you can protect me." "You already gave me something," I said. "A direct quote, an order to act without authorization. That's negligence on record." His eyes widened a fraction. "I didn't mean—" "You didn't have to. You just confirmed what I suspected." He shut off the mower. The sudden quiet was deafening. No engines, no pretense, just the 2 of us by the water, the reflection of a neighborhood built on fear rippling between us. "I've got to go," he said. I let him leave. You don't chase someone balancing on the edge of courage. You give them time to lean the right way. As he walked off, the faint smell of cut grass hung behind him. I stood alone by the pond, replaying every detail. Linda's power wasn't legal. It was psychological. But Marcus had cracked the first seam. I didn't know it yet, but that moment, the guilt in his voice, the confession buried in a whisper, was the first domino in everything that followed. By the time evening fell, Maple Ridge looked like it was preparing for battle disguised as a meeting. Folding chairs lined the HOA clubhouse. A spotless room that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and fear. Linda Crowley stood at the podium, posture straight, pearls glinting under the fluorescence. Behind her, the board sat in practiced stillness, 5 neighbors turned disciples, all pretending this was democracy. I took a seat in the back, close enough to watch, far enough to measure reactions. The room filled with whispers, paper shuffling, and the soft thud of people trying not to stare at me. Lydia had begged me to stay home, but I couldn't. The only way to stop rot is to expose it under bright light. Linda's gavel tapped once. Meeting is now in session. First order of business, code enforcement review. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who'd never been questioned. She scanned the room until her gaze met mine. "Dr. Calloway," she said, every syllable dipped in polite venom. "Thank you for joining us after last week's incident. I hope your wife is recovering." A few murmurs rippled through the audience. I held her stare. "She is, and we're both still waiting on the HOA's insurance to explain why its president was operating machinery on private property." The tension snapped like static. Linda smiled thinly. "We'll handle that matter through the appropriate channels. For now, we're addressing safety compliance concerns across several lots, including yours." She clicked her remote, and a photo appeared on the projector. My oak tree, its scarred trunk exposed like a wound on display. "As you can see," she said, "this structure poses risk of property damage and injury. Our independent inspection determined—" "Independent?" I interrupted. "Which firm signed off on that?" Her lips tightened. "The report is confidential." "Then it isn't independent." I folded my hands. "Real inspections require disclosure and chain of custody. Anything less is a liability fabrication." The room buzzed. I could feel Marcus somewhere near the side wall, pretending to fix a vent, his eyes darting between us. His jaw worked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't. The rest of the board fidgeted with their notes, uncomfortable with the shift in tone. Linda leaned forward. "We've been lenient, Doctor, but you've repeatedly violated visual uniformity statutes. We're imposing a fine of $1,000 per week until the obstruction is removed." Lydia's voice replayed in my head. Her soft disbelief when she saw the first notice weeks ago. I thought of her bandaged leg, her shaking hands. I stood slowly. "You're fining me for preserving a tree that meets every municipal safety code. You filed a false emergency report and someone got hurt. You're not just wrong, you're reckless." Gasps fluttered like wings around the room. Linda pounded the gavel again. "Sit down or you'll be removed." "I'm fine standing," I said. Marcus shifted behind her, knocking, his toolbox against the wall. The noise drew every eye. Linda glared at him, but he didn't look away. That single act, tiny, defiant, gave the others courage to murmur, to glance at one another instead of down at their hands. "Let's proceed," Linda said tightly. "Our next violation—" "You should disclose that inspection report," I said. "Because if you can't produce a licensed arborist's signature, your removal order violates State Code HOA 83.14 on private vegetation rights. That means personal liability." Her knuckles whitened around the gavel. She hadn't expected precision. That was the thing about procedural tyrants. They thrive until someone speaks their language better than they do. "Dr. Calloway," she said, her smile returning but thinner now. "You're welcome to file an appeal through proper channels. Otherwise, we'll proceed as outlined." "Good," I said evenly. "Because I already have. The city's compliance office will review it next week." The board exchanged nervous looks. Someone whispered, "He filed already?" Linda tried to recover. "That doesn't change the HOA's authority." "It changes the liability trail," I said. "And when the review confirms you overstepped, that trail leads straight to you." She slammed the gavel so hard the echo rang off the windows. Meeting adjourned. People scattered quickly, heads down, voices low. Marcus lingered by the door, eyes flicking toward me before he left through the side exit. His face said everything: fear, regret, the spark of resolve beginning to smolder. Outside, the night air felt thicker, charged. Porch lights blinked on across the street like nervous eyes. Lydia texted, "Everything okay?" I stared back at the clubhouse where Linda's silhouette moved through the blinds, her hand pressed to her phone. She was already calling someone. Damage control. The meeting hadn't been about rules. It was about control. and control only exists until someone names it out loud. I texted Lydia back. It's starting. Because it was. The HOA had just escalated from intimidation to open retaliation. And in doing so, Linda had made her first procedural mistake. I had witnesses now. The morning after the meeting, I sat in my office at St. Augustine Medical Center, surrounded by the low hum of monitors and the faint antiseptic scent that had followed me for half my life. This was where my advantage lived, not in anger, but in process. The same precision that saved trauma victims could dissect Linda Crowley's abuse of authority. My phone buzzed with another HOA email, notice of escalating fines. I let it sit unopened. Fines were noise, proof was signal. I paged my safety coordinator, Ava Moreno. She entered with a tablet under her arm and an eyebrow already raised. You're not calling me about a workplace injury, are you? Something like that, I said. Residential, not hospital. I need to analyze an incident. Report. One no one bothered to write. She sat across from me. You're talking about that HOA mess, right? I nodded and pulled up still frames from my recording. The chainsaw mid-arc, Lydia on the porch, Linda's hand gripping the trigger. Ava winced. You could take this straight to risk management. I'm not ready for court, I said. I need to establish causality first, chain of negligence. Think of it like reconstructing an OR error. She tilted the tablet toward her. You want an expert safety reconstruction? Exactly. Can we model the proximity and reaction time from these frames? She smiled faintly. You really are turning this into a case study. Call it professional reflex. For the next hour, we treated my driveway like an operating room. Ava mapped out distances, reaction windows, and violation markers. She highlighted that Linda's failure to establish a safety perimeter or notify the homeowner violated 2 state occupational safety protocols. If this were a workplace, she said, that would trigger automatic liability. The HOA acted as an unlicensed contractor. That's a major infraction. That word, unlicensed, lit up every neuron in my brain. I'd been searching for the seam, the moment where HOA arrogance crossed into illegality. This was it. Professional expertise wasn't just a weapon. It was a blueprint. While Ava compiled the mock report, I walked to the observation deck overlooking the ER bay. A medevac helicopter descended, blades carving the air into a roar that vibrated through my ribs. The sound pulled me back to that moment. The chainsaw's shriek, the same pitch, same chaos. Lydia's scream had cut through it just as clean. My jaw tightened, but the emotion hardened into focus instead of fury. I returned to Ava's desk. We're not submitting this yet, I said. We'll reference it quietly. She tapped the report. This could bury them. You sure you don't want the hospital name attached? Not yet. If they know where it came from, they'll prepare. I need them to keep pretending they're untouchable. Ava nodded. Then you'll need corroboration from a licensed safety consultant to make this admissible. I'll handle that, I said. I know a few from our accreditation audits. She leaned back. Ethan, just remember, when you start mixing personal vendettas with professional systems, things get messy. This isn't vengeance, I said quietly. It's accountability. Same principle, different setting. By noon, I had what I needed. A technical reconstruction proving that Linda acted outside her authority and without proper safety controls. My next step was confirmation, official, city level, but that required patience. Driving home, the neighborhood looked exactly the same. Every lawn immaculate, every driveway scrubbed. Yet under the surface, it felt different now. I had language they didn't speak. Compliance, procedure, chain of responsibility. Linda's power came from intimidation. Mine came from documented fact. Marcus was working 2 houses down, trimming hedges. When he saw my car, he gave the smallest nod, almost imperceptible, but it told me he'd made his decision. He was going to talk, not yet, but soon. I parked in front of the oak. Its wound had darkened, the sap now hard like amber. I touched the scar. Beneath the bark, life still pulsed, just redirected, not destroyed. Lydia stepped out onto the porch, moving carefully on her healing leg. Did you get what you needed? She asked. More than that, I said. I got proof they don't even understand the rules they are hiding behind. She studied me, worry mixed with pride. Promise me You'll keep it professional." "I always do," I said. But we both knew professionalism, when wielded right, could be lethal. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the house lights dimmed and drafted my first formal notice to the city's compliance office. It wasn't an accusation. It was an inquiry, measured, factual, impossible to ignore. I attached Ava's anonymized findings and hit send. Some battles start with shouting. Mine started with a well-formatted PDF and an expert's signature line waiting to be filled. Victory strategy progress, the foundation had been laid. Linda's authority wasn't legal. It was a facade, and now it had a crack running straight through it. 2 days later, I found the proof I needed. Accidentally, but not by chance. I'd been jogging near the east side of Maple Ridge, the area bordering the city's public maintenance line. The morning air smelled like wet asphalt and cut grass, the kind of calm that hides pressure underneath. My phone buzzed with a message from Ava. "City Compliance received your inquiry. They've opened a review file." That was progress. But what I saw next turned progress into leverage. A white truck marked Maple Ridge HOA Maintenance Division was parked across the street. Linda stood beside it in a crisp blazer, pointing at a row of newly installed hedges. Beside her, a man in a neon vest held a clipboard, the same city inspector whose name I recognized from hospital compliance audits. Detective Ryan Ortega, temporarily reassigned to the Municipal Safety Office. He was good at what he did, thorough, incorruptible, which meant Linda didn't realize how dangerous this little tour would be for her. I slowed my pace, looping around the block until I could hear fragments of their conversation. "We'll be planting on both sides of the easement," Linda was saying. "The HOA's assuming responsibility for upkeep." Ortega frowned. "That strip belongs to the city. You can't modify it without a permit or variance." "We've always maintained it," she insisted. "Implied stewardship." He shook his head. "There's no such clause. If your crew's been altering municipal property, that's unauthorized activity." I stopped beside a mailbox, tying my shoe just long enough to keep listening. Linda's tone dipped lower, smoother. "Surely we can find a way to document it properly now, retroactively." That was it. The kind of casual corruption she used like seasoning. I didn't have to record her. Ortega already would. His department logged every field visit by default, body cam and all. That meant there'd be an official record of Linda admitting unauthorized jurisdiction. She turned suddenly, spotting me. "Dr. Calloway," she called, voice bright with forced civility. "Getting your morning run in?" "Always," I said, straightening. "Keeps the circulation good. You should try it." Ortega looked between us. "You two know each other?" "Neighbors," she said quickly. "The good doctor and I have differing interpretations of community order." He gave a slow nod. "Understood. I'll be reviewing all this, ma'am. You might want to hold off on any further maintenance until the city clarifies jurisdiction." The moment his truck rolled away, her smile evaporated. "Eavesdropping now, doctor?" "Running," I said. "But I heard enough to know you just claimed stewardship over municipal property. That's not interpretation. That's encroachment." She stepped closer, her perfume too sweet for the heat. "You really think a few complaints will undo me? You're a surgeon, not a lawyer." "True," I said, "but both fields rely on documentation, and you just handed me your first infection site." Her jaw tightened. "Careful, harassment works both ways." "Then maybe stop trespassing," I said, walking past her. As I rounded the corner, I caught Marcus standing beside his mower, pretending to adjust the blade height. He'd heard everything. His hands trembled around the handle. For a second, our eyes met, and he mouthed, "She's scared." That confirmed what I'd suspected. Linda wasn't confident anymore. She was scrambling. The compliance review, Ortega's involvement, my quiet documentation, it was all spreading faster than she could contain it. When I reached home, Lydia was on the porch, sunlight spilling across her hair. She was stronger now, walking more each day. "You're smiling," she said. "That's new." "I just watched her argue with a city inspector," I said, "and lose." Lydia's expression softened, a hint of relief cutting through weeks of tension. "You're really doing this." "Not alone," I said. "Others are watching. Marcus, the porters, even the parents from the playground. Fear doesn't last when the truth starts to sound familiar." I opened my laptop and documented everything. The date, the time, Ortega's name, Linda's admission. Each entry was a stitch in the case I was building, neat and sterile. As the afternoon light shifted, I walked out to the oak. The scar had darkened further, the shape like a long, healed incision. I rested my palm against it and thought about Lydia's leg, the sutures I'd placed myself, the way both wounds mirrored each other, proof of harm, but also survival. Inside, the air was cool, humming with the quiet promise of precision. I added a final note to my report. Observation 4. HOA president asserted control over non-HOA property, municipal easement. Witness present. Potential violation of city maintenance code. Line 92.07. That night, Marcus texted one sentence that told me the tide was turning. She's calling an emergency board session tomorrow. Looks nervous. Good. That meant pressure, and pressure made people like Linda sloppy. Victory strategy progress. The professional investigation had expanded. I now had official city oversight in motion, and Linda had exposed herself through direct witnessing of wrongdoing, exactly the evidence trail I needed. The next evening, the emergency board session unfolded inside Linda's house, a sterile museum of control. Marble counters, symmetrical art, not a speck out of place. The smell of lemon oil hung in the air so thick it felt rehearsed. She'd invited only a few members, board loyalists, and Marcus, who was there under the pretense of adjusting a thermostat vent. I waited outside in my car across the street, headlights off, watching shadows move through her tall windows. I wasn't spying, I was confirming. Marcus had texted earlier. She's panicking, wants to rewrite the incident log. It took 30 minutes before my phone buzzed again. She's falsifying paperwork right now. Says the saw was operated by an independent contractor, not her. My pulse quickened. Not from surprise, but validation. Every tyrant's downfall starts the moment they try to edit reality. I texted back, "Don't intervene, just remember details." An hour later, Marcus slipped out the back gate, crossed the lawn, and slid into the passenger seat of my car, still smelling of cut grass and disinfectant. His hands trembled against his jeans. "I shouldn't be here," he said. "You're already here," I replied. He stared out the windshield at the glowing houses. "She's destroying everything. Emails, reports, even photos. Said she'll make it look like I handled the saw, not her." I watched his reflection in the glass. "She's scapegoating you." He nodded once. "Told the others I was responsible, that she just supervised. I have kids, Doc. I can't afford a lawsuit." "She can't sue you for her negligence," I said calmly. "If she files false statements, she's digging her own grave." Marcus's voice cracked. "You don't get it. Around here, reputation's currency. One rumor from her, and I'm done. Every HOA in 3 counties uses her vendor list." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Then let's make sure she's the one with no reputation left." He blinked. "You've got something planned, don't you?" "I've got procedure," I said, "and now, thanks to you, I've got motive on record." He pulled out his phone and showed me a voice memo app open on the screen. I didn't mean to start recording. It was running from earlier when she started yelling at me. You can hear her saying the contractor messed up the story. I think it caught everything. I exhaled slowly. "Marcus, that's gold. She'll fire me if she finds out." "She'll be indicted if she doesn't," I countered. "Keep that file. Send me a copy tonight and back it up on a drive she can't access." He hesitated. "You're sure this can't trace back to me?" "I'll anonymize the evidence through the hospital's legal counsel. Chain of custody stays clean." He nodded, the fear in his eyes fading into something harder. Resolve. "Then I'm in. I'm done helping her ruin people." "Good," I said, "because she's about to learn what due process feels like when it's aimed at her." We sat there in silence for a moment, the kind that settles right before a storm. A sprinkler hissed somewhere nearby, misting the road like static. "You know," Marcus said, "she's not just doing this for power. She thinks she's saving the neighborhood. Told the board that order requires sacrifices. I think she believes it." "That's the most dangerous kind of person," I said. "The one who mistakes cruelty for order." He gave a hollow laugh. "Guess we both clean up messes, huh? You in the ER, me in the yards." "Difference is," I said, "I clean them so they don't come back." He looked down at his hands, gripping the phone like a lifeline. "You'll protect me, right?" "I already am," I said. "The best protection is evidence. And we just got the kind that speaks louder than any threat. He nodded, exhaling for what felt like the first time all night. So what now? Now I take this to Ava, I said. She'll validate the audio authenticity. Once that's logged, Linda can't erase anything. He opened the door, hesitating before stepping out. You think she knows I talked to you? She suspects everyone, I said. That's how she loses. When he disappeared into the darkness, I sat there a while longer, watching Linda's living room lights flicker off one by one. The silence afterward wasn't peaceful. It was the breath before collapse. Back home, Lydia waited on the porch, wrapped in a shawl. You look like you've been chasing ghosts, she said. Just one, I replied. And I think I finally have her cornered. That night, I transferred Marcus's recording into my encrypted drive and labeled it Witness Statement. Primary source A. The waveform pulsed across the screen, the digital heartbeat of truth. Victory, strategy, progress. The conflicted witness had crossed the line from fear to action, providing key audio evidence of Linda's falsification, proof that my professional chain of custody could expose her negligence legally and ethically. The next morning began like a surgical prep, quiet, focused, deliberate. I arrived at the hospital before sunrise and found Ava already in her office, hair tied up, sleeves rolled, coffee steaming beside a folder labeled Risk Assessment External. She looked up as I entered. You weren't kidding about the recording, she said. I stayed late verifying the metadata. It's authentic, time-stamped, unedited, and clearly implicates Linda Crowley. Chain of custody clean? I asked. Perfectly, she said. The file originated from a personal device, preserved before any alteration attempt. Under state evidence law, it's admissible if we document the transfer. I leaned against her desk, exhaling slowly. Then we moved forward. Ava smiled faintly. You sound like you're prepping for surgery. In a way I am, I said. Only this time, the patient is a system infected with arrogance. She slid a second folder across the desk. I reached out to an outside consultant, one of the city's environmental safety engineers. He agreed to review your footage from the chainsaw incident, off the record. If he signs off, you'll have expert corroboration of illegal activity by a non-licensed operator. Name? Derek Vaughn, 30 years in municipal safety audits. His word carries weight. Good, I said. Schedule him. Ava tapped her pen. Ethan, this is turning into a formal exposure case. Once we cross this line, it's not just an HOA fight anymore. It's a liability storm. You sure you're ready for that? I nodded. Linda built her power on procedure. I'm going to dismantle it with the same tools. By noon, Derek arrived, a compact man with salt and pepper hair and an engineer's calm precision. We met in the simulation lab where we'd recreated the scene. He studied the footage frame by frame, his face unreadable. That woman operated heavy equipment without safety certification, he said finally. And she did it on private property under the pretense of HOA emergency authority. That's not just negligence, it's unauthorized operation. If this were municipal work, she'd lose her permit and face penalties. Can you put that in writing? I asked. I can do one better, he said. I'll send a certified statement to the city's compliance office. They'll have to investigate formally. Ava smiled. That'll trigger disclosure requirements for the HOA's insurance carrier. Exactly, Derek said. Once they realize their policy's invalid under falsified safety representation, the entire board becomes personally liable. There it was, the domino I'd been waiting for. A clean professional strike with no theatrics, no anger, just consequence. After Derek left, Ava turned to me. You realize this will make her desperate. People like Linda don't surrender. They implode. That's fine, I said. Implosion's just truth under pressure. Later that afternoon, I drove through Maple Ridge again, noting how quiet it seemed. The usual hum of lawnmowers and small talk was gone. Curtains twitched as I passed. The community could sense it. Something shifting, something brittle. Marcus texted. She called another emergency board meeting tonight. She's furious. Said she'll make examples. I replied, let her. We'll make records. Before sunset, I stopped by the oak tree. The scar looked smoother now, sealed by resin, no longer bleeding sap. I traced it with my fingertips. Lydia joined me, her step steady, her leg healing faster than anyone expected. It's starting to look alive again, she said softly. It is, I said. That's what happens when you stop cutting and start protecting. She studied me. You sound like you're talking about more than the tree. I smiled faintly. Maybe I am. That night, I opened my laptop and organized the chain of evidence like surgical notes. Video proof of unauthorized operation witness testimony, Marcus Bell. Expert verification, Derek Vaughn. Pending city review and compliance action. Each document was labeled, encrypted, cross-referenced. No emotion, just precision. The kind of precision that saves lives, or in this case, reputations and justice. Before logging off, I sent a courtesy notice to the HOA board, formally requesting disclosure of their insurance policy under the Homeowners Protection Clause. It wasn't an accusation. It was a scalpel cut straight through their defenses. Marcus messaged again near midnight. "You sure about this, Doc?" I replied. "Completely. It's time to prepare for surgery." Victory strategy progress. The counterplan was now fully in motion, using professional expertise to expose Linda's violations through expert corroboration, legal procedure, and precise documentation. The trap was set. All that remained was to let her walk into it. The next 72 hours felt like pre-op prep before a high-risk surgery. Tight timing, controlled breathing, no wasted movement. Every file I'd built, every recording I'd stored, had to be airtight before the cut. Ava handled the chain of custody forms. Derek finalized his certified statement. Marcus kept sending updates in short, nervous bursts. She's calling lawyers. She's threatening to sue the city. She's talking about a restraining order. Classic panic response. Loud, messy, and legally meaningless when you've already lost control of the narrative. My part was methodical. Early that morning, I walked into City Hall. The air inside carried that faint scent of old paper and stale air conditioning. At the public records kiosk, a clerk with thick glasses looked up as I slid a form across the counter. "Requesting verification of municipal maintenance permits for Maple Ridge HOA," I said. He typed for a minute, then frowned. "That neighborhood hasn't filed a maintenance variance in 5 years. "Perfect." I kept my expression neutral. "Would you mind printing the confirmation?" He handed me a stamped copy. "Official records inquiry completed. No permits found." It wasn't dramatic, but it was lethal. Proof that Linda had no standing to modify city property, no authority to claim emergency jurisdiction, and no paper trail to hide behind. Outside, the air felt cleaner. I took a picture of the stamped page, sent it to Ava and Derek, and then to Marcus with a single line. "We've got her cornered." By afternoon, I was back at the hospital, closing the loop. Ava read the document, whistling low. "That's it, Ethan. Once the city cross-checks this with Derek's safety report, she's toast." "Not yet," I said. "We still need the spark that makes the board turn on her." Ava raised an eyebrow. "You planning a grand reveal?" "Not exactly, just a clean incision at the right depth." That incision came faster than expected. Around 6, Marcus called from his truck, voice shaking. "She's flipping out, Doc. Said she got a notice from the city. They're reviewing her maintenance claims. She's blaming me, says she'll have me fired by morning." "She can't," I said. "The contract's between the HOA and the vendor, not her personally." "Tell her that," he muttered. "She's losing it. I'm scared she'll come after my family." "Listen to me," I said. "Stay calm. Tonight's your last night working for her. After tomorrow, this won't be your problem." I hung up and opened my computer. Every document, every video, every statement, organized by timestamp, digitally notarized. I wasn't just building a case. I was constructing inevitability. Professional expertise wasn't only knowledge, it was order, and order was power. At 8 p.m., I drafted one final message addressed to the entire HOA board. Subject: urgent review, safety violations and liability exposure. Board members, the enclosed documents outline a series of code violations and safety infractions committed under the direction of President Linda Crowley. These actions constitute unlawful operation of machinery on private property, falsification of inspection records, and unauthorized modification of municipal easements. As of today, the City Compliance Office and Risk Management Division have both received certified reports. I strongly advise the board to review your exposure under Homeowner Liability Statute, a 40183.22. Respectfully, Dr. Ethan Calloway, Director of Trauma Services. I didn't include threats. Facts were enough. When I hit send, I felt the same quiet focus I did before an incision. The breath before impact. Outside, Maple Ridge glowed under the sodium lamps. The lawns looked perfect again, but the silence was unnatural. You could sense it. The neighborhood had begun to turn on her. Lydia joined me on the porch, resting her hand on my shoulder. "You look lighter," she said. "I'm close," I said. "She's going to realize she's outnumbered, not outranked. What happens when she fights back?" "Then she exposes herself even more," I said. "That's the part she'll never understand. Procedure cuts both ways." She nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "You sound like you're about to operate." "I am," I said. "Only this time, I'm removing a tumor from an entire neighborhood." We sat together under the repaired porch light, the oak casting a long shadow across the yard, like a guardian. At 10:43 p.m., Marcus texted again. She just called an open board meeting for tomorrow night. Said she's going to restore authority. I stared at the message, heart steady. "Perfect," I whispered. "That's the confrontation. Victory strategy progress." The preparation phase was complete. Through official records inquiry, expert validation, and documented chain of evidence, Ethan's professional precision had positioned the truth like a scalpel poised for the final cut. Tomorrow's meeting would be the incision that ended it. The day of the meeting arrived heavy and electric, like the air before a summer storm. Maple Ridge had never felt louder. Lawnmowers, sprinklers, voices echoing across driveways. But it was all nervous noise. Beneath it, everyone knew something was about to break. I spent the morning reviewing every file, every timestamp, every expert note. Ava double-checked the submission packet and sent me a simple text. "Everything's in motion. The city will confirm receipt by 6 p.m. At 6:05, I parked at the cul-de-sac near the clubhouse. Cars lined both sides of the street, neighbors walking in small, tense groups. Lydia stayed home, her doctor's orders, my insistence, but she made me promise to record the meeting. "If it gets bad," she'd said, "don't argue. Just show them what you've already built." I walked toward the clubhouse with my phone set to record. The sun dropped behind the rooftops, turning the glass windows amber. Inside, the crowd buzzed louder than usual, faces flushed, eyes restless. I recognized everyone. The porters, parents from the playground, even Marcus sitting near the back, hat low. Linda stood at the front, immaculate as ever, a folder clasped in both hands. Her smile was the kind worn by people who mistake composure for control. "Thank you for attending on short notice," she began. "There's been misinformation circulating about this board and its authority. I called this meeting to clarify the truth." I took a seat near the aisle. The air conditioner hummed like a steady monitor tone. Linda lifted a stack of papers. "It's come to my attention that certain individuals," her eyes swept across the room until they landed on me, "have made baseless accusations of misconduct. These claims threaten not only this board, but the property values of every home here." Murmurs rippled. "The porters exchanged looks," she continued. "Our records show that all maintenance activity was conducted under contractor supervision and approved via standard protocol." I stood. "You mean falsified protocol? You forged after-the-fact authorizations for work never permitted by the city." Her jaw twitched. "You're out of order." I held up my phone. "So was your chainsaw." The room gasped. "Dr. Calloway," she snapped, "you're not entitled to address this meeting." "I'm not asking permission," I said. "I'm exercising accountability." She tried to talk over me, but I connected my phone to the projector. The screen lit up with the first image, the oak tree mid-cut, her arm extended, the chain in motion. Then, the audio. Linda's own voice from Marcus's recording. "Say the contractor messed up the story." The silence that followed felt absolute, then whispers, then anger. "That's her voice," someone said. "She lied to the board," another muttered. Linda's composure cracked. "That recording is illegal." "It's not," I said evenly. "Recorded in a public workplace under implied consent, verified by an independent legal review." She turned to the board, desperate. "You can't let him hijack this meeting. He's manipulating evidence." Ava, standing near the doorway in her hospital badge, spoke calmly. "Actually, it's been authenticated." I submitted the documentation to the city this morning. All 5 board members froze. One whispered, "The city?" I advanced the slide again. Derek's safety report, his signature stamped and dated, confirming unauthorized operation. Then the public records document, stamped by the clerk, no permits on file. Each page landed like a scalpel, precise, undeniable. Linda's voice rose to a shrill pitch. "You can't just destroy this HOA!" I met her glare. "I'm not destroying it. I'm disinfecting it." The audience erupted, not cheering, not shouting, but something heavier, relief. Decades of fear cracking open at once. Marcus stood, voice trembling, but clear. She told me to blame myself, said nobody would believe a landscaper over her. The board chair, a man who'd stayed silent for years, finally spoke. "Linda, did you falsify reports?" Her silence was answer enough. He turned to me. "Dr. Calloway, will request full cooperation with the city review. Effective immediately, Ms. Crowley is suspended pending investigation." Linda's face drained of color. "You can't do this." He raised a hand. "We just did." The gavel struck, but this time the sound belonged to justice, not intimidation. I exhaled slowly. The crowd broke into hushed conversations. Some thanked me quietly. Others walked out in stunned silence. Marcus stayed seated, hands over his face, shaking with disbelief and maybe relief. As I stepped outside, the night air hit like freedom, cool, electric, alive. Porch lights blinked on across Maple Ridge, one by one, as if the neighborhood itself was waking up. I looked back at the clubhouse windows where Linda once stood like a queen. Now, only her reflection lingered, small, fading. Victory strategy progress. The professional expertise strategy reached execution. Ethan's documentation, authenticated evidence, and expert validation dismantled Linda's control publicly and legally, setting up the final phase, resolution and community reform. The following week, Maple Ridge held its first open community gathering in years. A real one this time, not an HOA performance. Folding chairs covered the lawn near the clubhouse. Families brought coolers and folding tables, and the air carried a nervous kind of celebration. The city had already frozen the HOA's operations pending review. Linda's name was stripped from every official document. But tonight wasn't about punishment. It was about reclaiming something everyone thought they'd lost. I stood at the edge of the crowd, the oak tree visible behind me through the open gates. Lydia sat near the front, her leg wrapped but stronger every day, a soft smile breaking through the evening light. Marcus hovered near the sound system, setting up microphones like it was any other landscaping gig. Only he and I knew how much courage it took for him to show his face in public again. The new interim chair, Jacob Porter, tapped the mic. "Neighbors," he said, "we've been quiet for too long. What happened here was wrong, and for the first time, we're going to talk about it." Applause rippled across the crowd, uneven at first, then steady. Jacob gestured to me. "Dr. Calloway, would you join us?" I stepped forward, the hum of whispers following. Some people smiled, others looked uncertain. I understood both. When I reached the mic, the evening breeze carried the faint smell of grass and barbecue smoke. "I never planned to stand here," I began. "When this started, I just wanted to keep my wife safe and protect a tree my father planted 40 years ago. But it turned into something bigger, a test of what happens when power stops answering to people." I paused, scanning the faces. Neighbors who'd been fined, threatened, silenced. "Linda's not the only reason this happened. We all played a part, by staying quiet, by letting fear sound like authority. But silence is compliance, and compliance is how bullies win." A murmur of agreement moved through the crowd. Lydia caught my eye, her nod steadying me. I continued. "I'm a surgeon. My job is removing what's toxic before it spreads. That's what we did here, together. We didn't fight chaos with chaos. We used order, evidence, truth. We used the same precision she tried to weaponize against us." Marcus stepped up beside the stage, mic in hand. "I used to work for her," he said quietly. "I watched her hurt people because I was scared of losing my job. But when I saw what she did to Lydia, I couldn't stay quiet. None of this would have happened if Doc hadn't listened instead of judging." The applause came hard and fast. He stepped back, eyes damp but proud. Jacob raised a hand. "We're voting tonight to restructure the board. No more closed sessions, no secret fines. Every member gets a voice. A woman shouted from the crowd, "About time." Laughter followed, the kind that sounded like release. I took the mic one last time. Change doesn't start with laws. It starts with neighbors looking each other in the eye. What happened to us was ugly, but it reminded me why community matters. It's not the rules, it's the people willing to defend them when they're used wrong. From the back, a voice asked, "What happens to Linda?" "The city will handle that," I said, "but we'll handle the future." The crowd cheered. For the first time since this started, Maple Ridge felt alive. Kids ran near the playground again. The air smelled like summer instead of tension. I spotted Marcus walking toward the oak, touching its trunk like a benediction. Lydia joined him, laughing softly when he promised to build a bench around it. "Make it a place to sit, not to fight," he said. The community meeting stretched long into the night, neighbors signing up for committees, offering to repaint the fences Linda once called non-compliant. The light from the clubhouse spilled onto the lawn like dawn coming early. When Jacob called for a final vote to dissolve the old HOA charter, every hand rose, even the ones who used to fear her. The motion passed unanimously. As the crowd broke apart, Lydia slipped her hand into mine. "You did it," she said. "We did," I said. "All of us." She smiled. "Feels lighter out here." "It's what happens when you let the air back in," I said, glancing at the oak swaying under the lights. Victory strategy progress. The professional expertise strategy reached its public confrontation peak. Ethan's evidence dismantled the old power structure before the community, converting truth into collective action and democratic reform. The stage was set for reflection and closure. The morning after the vote, Maple Ridge woke to something it hadn't known in years: silence without fear. No violation slips taped to doors, no clipped notices on mailboxes. No low-level dread humming under the manicured calm. Just birds, sprinklers, and sunlight dripping through the branches of the oak that still stood tall in my yard. For the first time since the chainsaw's scream, the air smelled like peace. I brewed coffee and watched Lydia step carefully down the porch steps. Her limp was lighter now, her laugh unguarded. She ran her hand along the bark, tracing the healed scar. "It's sealing itself," she said. "Trees are good at that," I told her. "They compartmentalize damage. They don't forget. It just becomes part of them." She smiled, her palm flat against the trunk. "Guess that makes us trees now." We sat on the new bench Marcus built, smooth cedar hugging the roots like protection instead of punishment. The neighborhood was already shifting, Jacob and Elise repainting the gazebo, kids chalking bright words across the pavement. Free zone, no fear. It was childish and perfect. Marcus crossed the street with his cap pushed low. "Doc," he called, "city investigators just wrapped up. They're forwarding charges to the county. Said your report saved them a month of work." I stood, shaking his hand. "You did that," I said. "You gave me the proof." He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Nah, I just hit record." "You did surgery." "Same thing," I said. "We both stopped the bleeding." He grinned. "If you ever need your yard done again, free for life." When he left, Lydia leaned against me. "You think she'll actually face charges?" "She will," I said. "But that's not the point anymore. This wasn't about her losing. It was about everyone else remembering they had a voice." I looked around. The lawns looked no different, same fences, same roses, but something fundamental had shifted. Neighbors waved now, people lingered outside instead of rushing inside when a board member passed. Order no longer meant obedience. It meant fairness. That afternoon, the city sent the official notice, all charges under review. HOA board dissolved pending reformation. Property rights restored to homeowners. It was formal language for something simple. We'd won. Not by shouting, not by rage, but by precision and courage. I printed the letter and pinned it to the oak trunk right where the bark had been torn away months ago. The paper fluttered softly in the wind, a declaration nailed to survival. When the sun dipped, Lydia brought out 2 glasses of iced tea, and we sat beneath the canopy, watching fireflies spark to life. The whole street was glowing with porch lights now, not as surveillance, but as celebration. "You could have left," she said. "You could have sold the house and started over." I shook my head. "That tree's roots go deep. My father planted it when he built this house. It's been here through storms, droughts, and one very misguided HOA president. You don't walk away from that. You protect it. Lydia smiled softly. You sound like him? Maybe, I said. But this time, the whole neighborhood remembers why he planted it, to remind people that growth and control can't coexist. The wind stirred again, and the oak whispered like it understood. For the first time, I let myself breathe, not as a fighter, not as a doctor, but as someone who finally healed what couldn't be sutured in a hospital. Before heading inside, I turned on the camera one last time, the porch light glowing behind me. If you've ever faced someone who thought they owned your peace, I said, remember, the rules only have power until you know how they work. Learn them, use them, and you'll never be powerless again. I pointed to the tree, the scar gleaming like a vein of gold. If you want more stories of homeowners standing up to HOA tyranny, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from. The camera blinked red once and stopped recording, catching the last image of the oak swaying in the breeze, alive, scarred, and unbroken. Victory strategy. Progress, the professional expertise strategy concluded with legal reform and community renewal. Ethan's precision replaced fear with order, restoring autonomy to Maple Ridge. The story closed not in revenge, but in recovery. The system healed by the same method it once abused.